I've been sitting with this feeling for a while, and honestly, I still can't fully tell if I'm seeing something real or if I just want to be the first person who saw it early. That's the part I don't want to skip over, because it would be easy to turn this into a clean take. AI is changing content, the internet is getting fake, creators need receipts, provenance matters, plant your flag, build now. That version is simple, it might even be true, but I don't think that the truth arrived that cleanly. For me, it showed up more like a pressure in the background, something I kept noticing but couldn't fully name. Every time I saw another faceless channel, another synthetic voice, another polished video that felt like it came from nowhere, I felt the same thing. Not anger, not fear, more like a warning light. Like something had changed in the structure of the internet, but most people were still arguing about the surface. And the surface is easy to see. Everybody sees the slop, the auto-narrated garbage, the fake engagement, the generated thumbnails, the content farms, the comments that sound human but feel empty. The accounts that appear overnight with 1,000 posts but in no pulse. That part is obvious, but that's not what keeps me thinking about it. What keeps me thinking about it is what happens when it stops looking like slop. Because the mistake is assuming the fake stuff will always look fake. It won't. The bad versions are just the first wave. The awkward hands, the dead eyes, the weird pacing, the voice that it sounds almost human, but not quite. That's the warning shot. That's not the destination. The destination is content that looks real enough, sounds real enough, feels real enough, and moves fast enough that most people stop asking where it came from. A person who never existed can have a face, a moment that never happened can have lighting. A story nobody lived can have emotional timing. A voice that nobody can sound wounded, excited, reflective, sincere. When that happens at scale, the problem is not just fake content. The problem is that real content starts to lose its natural advantage. Because doubt does not only attach itself to the fake thing, doubt spreads. Once people know that anything can be generated, the question changes from, is this fake? To, how would I even know? And when enough people start asking that question, the internet becomes different. Not because every person becomes cynical, because every artifact becomes detached from origin unless someone built the chain ahead of time. That's the part I think a lot of people are underestimating. We keep talking about detection like detection is going to save us. Maybe some of it helps. Watermarks, metadata, platform labels, content credentials, cryptographic signatures. All of that matters. I'm not dismissing it. But technical proof has a boundary. It can tell you something about a file. It can tell you something about a platform record. It can tell you whether an image passed through a certain pipeline or whether a piece of media has a traceable signature, but it cannot tell you whether the person means what they are saying. It cannot tell you whether the work came from lift pressure or from a prompt trying to imitate lift pressure. It cannot tell you whether the standard existed before the trend. That's the gap. That's where provenance becomes more than metadata. Provenance is origin. But I don't mean origin in the shallow sense, not just who uploaded this first, not just what camera was used, not just which model generated it. I mean the visible chain of where something came from. The drafts, the footage, the timestamps, the conversations, the mistakes, the revisions, the contradictions you worked through, the public artifacts you left before anyone had a reason to care. The body of work that proves you did not appear from nowhere, that is the layer I keep coming back to, because when the content itself becomes easier to fake, the history around the content becomes more valuable. Not perfect, not impossible to imitate, but harder to counterfeit after the fact. A real chain has weight. You can feel when someone has been building the same standard for years, even if they didn't have the words for it yet. You can see the older attempts. You can see the progression. You can see the awkward first vision, the better second version, the moment where the idea sharpened, the moment where the system started to hold. That matters because a machine can generate a manifesto, it can generate a voice, it can generate a brand deck, a logo, a philosophy, a script, a launchpad, a 100 posts, and a fake archive of confidence. But it cannot retroactively live your life. It cannot retroactively be there when the idea was ugly. It cannot retroactively carry the thing before it was marketable. It cannot retroactively become the person who took the hit, stayed in the room, learned the pattern, and built the standard before anyone clapped for it. That is the part I think creators are going to wish they had built sooner. Not content, chain. The noise. And this is where the noise gets dangerous because the loudest thing is usually not the most real thing. The internet rewards motion. Post more, cut faster, say it sharper. Turn every thought into a clip, turn every clip into a funnel, turn every funnel into a product. Turn every product into a personality. And now AI makes that motion cheaper, so the amount of output goes up, the amount of proof does not automatically go with it. That is the split. Noise is output without origin. Signal is output without context, authorship, transformation, and intent. Noise says, look how much I can make. Signal says, look where this came from. Noise performs certainty. Signal can survive being questioned, and I think the distinction is going to matter more than people want to admit, because for a while people will still consume whatever entertains them. That's real. Most viewers do not stop and run a providence audit before watching a video. They are tired, they want something useful, funny, interesting, emotional, or distracting. I know that. So part of me asks the obvious question, does anyone actually care? Does provenance matter to a normal person? Or is this just one of those ideas that sound important to people who spend too much time thinking about systems? That question bothers me because the honest answer might be not yet, not at scale, not until they get burned. Most people do not care about the lock until after something gets stolen. Most people do not care about the receipt until there is a dispute. Most people do not care about the chain until the origin gets challenged. So yes, maybe I'm early, maybe I'm overreading it, maybe this is one of those founder brain moments where the pattern feels obvious because I've been staring at it too long. I have to hold that possibility because if I don't, then I'm not thinking, I'm just selling myself on my own ideas. There's another uncomfortable layer, motive, because I can say providence matters, I can say creators need to plant their flag, I can say no limit is built around proof, principle, and discipline. All of that can be true, and still some part of me wants the recognition because I want to be able to say I saw this before it became obvious, and part of me wants the receipts not just because receipts are useful, but because receipts protect the work from being erased, copied, and misunderstood or stripped from context. That's ego. It is in the mix. I don't think pretending otherwise makes the message cleaner. It makes it less honest because most people building anything real have mixed motives. There's a service, an ambition, a fear of being in it, and, a certain love that just follows. And it's a need to prove something even if you don't want to admit who you're proving it to, because the question is not whether the motive is perfectly pure. The question is whether the observation survives contact with that motive. And I think this one does, even if I want it to be, early in the game, the window is still real. And if I want recognition, the chain still matters. Part of this is selfish and the standard still holds. The work is either of origin or it's, not of origin, and the receipts either exist or they don't. You either build the pattern before it is convenient, or you're trying to borrow the aesthetic after the fact, and that's not just a vibe, it's evidence. While this is important for creators, it's not just about gaming. Gaming is where I learned a lot of the patterns. The reps, the clips, the reviews, the systems, the difference between skill and exploitation, cheaters, and the difference between performance and proof. This is bigger than games. It's for the musicians working on their albums, the writers with drafts that no one's seen, the filmmakers with the scripts in their folders, just waiting to be put out, and other artists and builders who have perfected their style and been studying for years, but still have no public body of work. The person that knows they have something real, but keeps telling themselves they are not ready to put it where it can be judged. I get that. I've lived in that gap. Private certainty, public hesitation, the belief that the work matters, mixed with the fear that once it leaves your hands, it can be misunderstood, ignored, copied, or exposed as smaller than you had hoped. So you can keep refining, you keep collecting, and you keep preparing because the preparation feels responsible right up until it becomes avoidance. That is the line, and AI makes that line more dangerous because soon the internet will be flooded with things that look like someone already did what you were waiting to do. Maybe not with your exact soul or your exact story, but close enough for the feed, close enough for the first impression, close enough to make a stranger keep scrolling. And if you have no chain, no history, or public evidence, no visible progression, then you are asking for the future to believe you are on vibes alone. Just to believe you on vibes alone. That is a bad bet, not because you are not real, but because you waited too long to make your realness legible. IRL is not safe either. I think the people most at risk are the ones who feel the safest, especially IRL creators. For people who think I'm fine, I go places, I meet real people, I film real things, and AI can't replace that. Maybe not directly, but replacement is not the only threat. Saturation is a threat. Doubt is a threat. Context collapse is a threat. When synthetic people can stand in synthetic places and tell synthetic stories with believable emotion, the viewer does not only doubt the fake ones, they start doubting the category. That means the real creator has to carry more than footage. They need continuity. They need visible process. They need a relationship with the audience that was not assembled yesterday. They need the boring receipts, the unsexy proof, the chain that says I was here, I made this, I built it in public, people watched it happen. The standard existed before the incentive. That is the moat. Not reality by itself. Traceable reality. Null limit. That is where Null limit sits for me, not as a brand trying to add more noise to the pile. As an operating standard for building proof in a world that is making proof harder to see. Gameplay, philosophy, and proof. That line matters because all three pieces check each other. Gameplay without philosophy becomes highlights with no spine. Philosophy without proof becomes decoration. Proof without a standard becomes ego. No limit exists in the overlap. Do the work. Show the chain. Refuse the shortcut that hollows out the result. Build systems that make the right action easier when the mood fails. Ship before you are ready, not because the work is finished, but because the iteration requires a live artifact. That is not a slogan to me. It is uncomfortable. Because it means this video has to exist before it feels safe. It means I cannot sit behind the idea forever and keep polishing the argument until there is no risk left in saying it. At some point, the timestamps has to be made. At some point, the flag has to go in the ground. And maybe I am wrong. Maybe this does not matter as much as I think. Maybe the market doesn't care. Maybe viewers keep choosing whatever entertainment. Them and the chain only matters to a small group of people who still care about Origin. That could happen. But I keep coming back to one line. I would rather be wrong about this and have built something than be right about it and have done nothing. Plant your flag. So if you're listening to this and feel nothing, that's fine. This probably isn't for you. Most people will keep moving the way they're already moving. They will consume, react, wait, optimize, compare, and tell themselves they are not quite ready. That's normal. But if something in this bothers you, pay attention to that. If you have work sitting somewhere that should already be public, you should pay attention, because if you've been waiting for the perfect version You know you already have subsets but no visible chain. The window is not about hype. It's not about hustle. It's not about posting every day until your life becomes content. It's not about establishing origin while origin still means something. Start the chain, publish the rough version, archive the process, keep the draft, show the progression, build the body of work before you need the body of work to defend you. Do not wait until the internet is already flooded and then try to prove you were real the whole time. Plant your flag while the ground still means something. Not because you are finished, because you are here, because you are building, because the proof of being real is not a claim you make later. It is the evidence you leave now.